Hi, and welcome to another edition of the UNCAGED podcast. I'm Dan Hawk alongside my Executive Director of Athletics, Mr. Dustin Smith. He is my co-host. We're going to start it off with Coach Shannon Dobson. Had a solid season so far, but before we get to him, I just want to talk about what you've seen out of the growth of this baseball team.
Well, you know, when you got a lot of guys that haven't played as much varsity baseball as you'd like for them to at this point, you kind of baptism by fire. They just get out there and have to play, and you. It's always a manager's or a coach's, I don't want to say nightmare, but job to start placing people in the right spots. And you may have them in the right spot, but they've got to hit, they've got to field, they've got to do everything out on the field to be able to earn that spot and retain that spot. And so it's a puzzle to kind of mix and match and try to figure out where everybody goes. And I think Coach Dobbs getting them where he wants them and can see consistently. You know the game of baseball, and you know how trying it can be and how emotional it can be sometimes. But trying to find that spot, and obviously you want to be playing well towards the end of the season. You don't want to peak in March. You want to start building towards that crescendo in late April, early May. And I think this team's on the uptick, obviously, to try to really have a special season.
Out of all the sports that are out there, it seems like baseball goes the fastest, and I think it's because of the spring break and everything that's in line with that. But going back to what you said about the uptick, you know, they might not have started quickly the way he was wanting, but it seems like the tide has turned for them.
Yeah, and districts is still in reach, and an opportunity to be able to host a regional, which is something I'm sure he'll discuss. But we still have, I mean, every game matters. That's what's important. And in district play, you play a team Monday and Tuesday, one at their place and one at our place. And so we went to Enid last night, got a big win out there against their number one, and getting it again tonight. And they come here, and so they get to make the trip, and they got to have the drive and then get home late, much like we did yesterday. But districts are still, I mean, it's so crazy. You only have 3 series left, really, and then it's regional play, and so it's time to start really making sure the bats get hot and the pitching stays where it's supposed to be and it's consistent. And defensively, obviously, you've got to be really clean and be able to really execute, whether that's bunt defense, whether that's hit and run defense, whether that's turning two, or just your outfield making catches when they need to. It's great to have the anchor of Cooper Bates in center field. Even the last home game that we had here, he made a catch that was just unreal in left center. He tracked it down, and his speed is really a benefit. But trying to figure out those pieces and where they are, and how our shortstop and our second baseman may not be the tallest guys, but they're able to really play a good, solid defense, and just finding those pieces around.
Hosting regional is obviously key. Winning your district is also key. Obviously, right now, Bixby's on top. But this 6A4, and I know we're going to go into more detail with Coach Dobson, it's just a gauntlet, and it's top heavy in some regards, but even the lower tier teams in the district can win a game as well.
Yeah, I mean, your Tigers may not be able to win a game in it because it's so stout. But,
he's meaning my Detroit Tigers,
Detroit
by
Tigers,
the way.
not the BA Tigers, but you know. It is a gauntlet. It's week in and week out, and it shows you how consistent you have to be. Every game, you've got to come and show up to play. We can't go into tonight's game and rest on, hey, we won 9-0 last night. It's a brand new game, and that's the beauty of baseball. And we talk about how quick the game goes or the season goes. It's just so many games. And if we're not playing varsity at home, then JV's playing at home. And if varsity's playing, and sometimes JV's on the road. And so there's so many games that happen in a short amount of time. You've got to cram it all in. And so when you get to spring break, you're looking at, man, this season's almost halfway done, and it's just the middle of March. And so then you've got a month and a half really to get going and figure out if you're going to make a deep run in the playoffs or not.
You've been around athletics for a long time. Where do you look at high school baseball now from when you and I played and maybe 5 years ago to where it is now?
It's such a different game because travel ball has become so big. Not that it wasn't. I mean, we played Legion ball when I was a kid.
That's what I played as well.
And Legion was more localized, and now they're playing travel ball in different states. They're going to different regions and playing, and they play a lot of games in the summer that I never play. I mean, we played some Legion, but there were leagues, and so we would play local games. And but with the advancement of travel ball, it has really, obviously, that's going to impact high school baseball, and it gives them an opportunity to showcase more skill, and they come in a lot more polished, and just because they have had innings. And we may have had guys that haven't had a ton of varsity innings, and that's different than obviously travel ball, but they've played innings, and they've gotten at bats, and they've seen live pitching, and that's a big part of baseball. You got to see live pitching. You can't just be off a machine. You can't be off a tee all the time. You've got to see live arms and see what the ball does, and time that up and try to figure out what your swing is like, and make your adjustments of whether you're open or closed, or whether you got a big lead-in step, or you swing inside out, whatever it is. You start honing that, and maybe some of your travel ball, and when varsity season rolls around, or school ball rolls around, you've started to fine-tune really just kind of what the kind of player you are.
Transfer portal, NIL, has made its way down to the high school levels at some point, and it's going to continue to be that way. But it seems like baseball, in my opinion, unlike football, it's not affecting the high school kids as much, because if you're a dude and you're batting very strong at the plate and you got tons of velo, you're still going to get that shot at playing at the next level. It seems better than some sports.
I've always said if you can play, they're going to find you.
Right.
The collegiate level, they will find you, and you can't hide. I mean, really, you can't, because we got technology. I mean, stats are readily available, and right. I know the college teams are playing right now. And there's limits as far as how many kids are getting any significant money at the collegiate level for scholarship anyway, just because there's so many. They only get 13 scholarships or 15, whatever it is now. And so they've got to spread that out through an entire roster. And so not everybody's – it's very rare you're getting a full ride kid. But
especially
NIL,
in baseball.
Right, especially in baseball.
Yeah.
But some of the NIL money now at the collegiate level will help offset some of that stuff. And, you're not seeing those at the Northeasterns and the UCOs of the world. You're going to see them probably at Oklahoma State and, your big-time programs, University of Arkansas, who's one in the country right now. You're going to see some of those kids getting some NIL deal. But as far as the high school level, it's going to be few and far between as far as kids that are going to get loads of money, just because at the collegiate level you're not going to get a whole lot.
Right.
Sometimes you're going to get books, and sometimes you're going to get tuition, and sometimes you're going to get room, but you won't get a combo of all of them.
Have you ever sat back and thought about how lucky we are here in Broken Arrow, where when these kids get the chance to play at the next level, there's so many regional opportunities for them? Like me growing up in Idaho, it was a long trip to have my parents come see me, but there's so many schools scattered around the region, the parents could still see their kids play at the next level.
Yeah, and our districts help that because it's regional. I mean, obviously I say it's district, but we got a lot of the teams that are really close within our metro area. I know Enid is an outlier, and we'll play Piedmont next week, and they're a little bit of an outlier, but you also have the Bixby's of the world, the Bishop Kellys of the world, the Tulsa Unions of the world that are this close. And a Monday night on the road may not be really, Union's 7 miles from us.
Yeah.
So you get to go 7 miles, and Bishop Kelly's
probably six or 7.
It's close, and Jinx is close. And Bixby's close. So there's a lot of quality baseball right around here and opportunities for us to be able to play. And I'll tell you what else is a benefit, having turf. Because Coach Dobb, we'll talk about it all the time. Hopefully the weather holds off. Weather holds off. And coming from a school that had natural grass, you really hope
that's what I was on.
Held off. But having the turf gives you flexibility to be able to play games.
I got one more for you before we bring on Coach Dobson. When you look at high school baseball now, is it in a better spot than when you and I suited up back in the day?
I'd hope so. I wasn't nearly as good as I thought I was, but just the sheer amount of opportunities kids have. We didn't have those opportunities. People weren't coming to Pawhuska, Oklahoma, these big-time colleges to see unless you were really, really, really good.
Right.
But I think the game of baseball is in a better space. It's different. At college, when they go to the pitch clock, at some point that probably will make its way to the high school level. I'm not sure how they'll regulate that, but I think that's probably going to make its way down there. And there's some people that are upset with the pitch clock now.
Right.
A lot of the major league aces are getting hurt, and they're blaming the pitch clock. And I think if you're looking for something to blame, you can find it. So I'm not sure that I can jump in on that yet. But at the end of the day, I think the game of baseball is in a much better spot. It's a different game than when I played, but it's in a better spot.
Well, Dustin, we're going to have to bring on Coach Dobson in just a little bit. We'll discuss all things baseball with Coach Dobson. Stay with us on the Uncaged podcast.
Your side hustle keeps you moving. We'll help you get where you really want to go. TTCU Federal Credit Union. Life is better in balance.
Tulsa Bone and Joint, Northeast Oklahoma's sports medicine experts. We are pleased to help you and the athletes in your life with a number of surgical and non-surgical options. Tulsa Bone and Joint is proud to serve as team orthopedist for local high schools such as Broken Arrow, Owasso, Sapulpa, Cascia Hall, and Bishop Kelly. We're also proud to be team orthopedist for FC Tulsa. Tulsa Bone and Joint, moving life forward.
For families who like to build their wealth while staying liquid, we have flexible rate CDs to keep your funds working hard, even when you're not. First National Bank of Broken Arrow. The right balance.
At Ascension St. John, you'll find advanced heart care, brain and spine care, and personalized cancer care. And we excel just as much in the things that can't be measured. Listening more closely, caring more compassionately.
Life happens in a hurry. Our money experts will help you keep up. TTCU Federal Credit Union. Life is better in balance.
Hi, and welcome back to the UNCAGED podcast. I'm joined by head coach Shannon Dobson, also my co-host, Mr. Dustin Smith. Coach, you had a long one on the road last night, didn't get home till 11, and now you're going to be back at the Diamond tonight with Enid in a district matchup. But just overall, tell me about how this year's going.
Overall, it's been a good year. We've kind of been up and down a little bit. Got a lot of new faces in our lineup, so it takes a while for those guys to gel a little bit. A lot of them didn't have very much varsity experience coming in, so just trying to get them to play together, and I think we're getting a little bit more consistent. I think last night was probably our most complete game, so did a great job last night.
You're talking to two baseball nuts here, so we always get excited with baseball. The one thing I want to discuss about your team is it's very young, with the aspect that you got a lot of guys that don't have a lot of varsity experience, but that can be growing pains, but it also can be fun because when it comes to big games, they might not necessarily understand the big stage where they just play. Break that down for me.
And I think that's kind of how we've been. We've in our district play, we've split with a lot of teams, just not knowing how to finish, the series off. And I think that's because of the inexperience. And, we have quite a few seniors in our lineup, but they're new to varsity. Mm-hmm. So just getting that time, I think the consistency has come through time, and I think it'll get better as we get towards the end.
Coach, let's talk a little bit about the lineup. And you'd love to be able to say, these are my 9, and I'm going to pencil them in every day and almost take the pencil out of it, just pin them in every day and put them, this is the lineup. But let's talk about your philosophy on trying to change guys around, and that's the game of baseball. It's a game set up for failure because you get a hit 1 out of 3 times, they think that's a pretty good.
You're a Hall of Famer.
I mean, it's a great deal. But talk about changing your lineup up and what that looks like for you from a high school perspective.
And I think for us, we've probably had about 3 or 4 guys that have been consistently in our lineup. So it's taken some time. We brought some guys up from JV and just trying to figure out the pieces to put together. We've had some guys that have been in the DH position, different guys at first base. We've actually had a freshman catcher that's come up and caught a little bit for us. So just trying to find that chemistry. I think for me, if something's not working, you got to do something different. And that's what we've done here of late, just trying to find the guys that fit and where they fit in the lineup. Guys that hitting in the 4-hole, maybe moving down in the lineup, just different situations that's come about for us. For us, I think really the pitching has kind of been pretty steady and our defense has been pretty good. So just finding that hitting lineup that gives us a little bit of, run support for our guys.
When you talk about it, the batting lineup is just part of the game. You got to work on the defensive side too. So you can't insert them on the offensive side if they're a detriment to you defensively. I mean, you obviously got to find a place, and you got to DH for a reason. Somebody that can hit and maybe not hit somebody that's out in the field. But what's that mesh point for defensively trying to find the right the right guys.
For me, philosophy-wise, I've always been a pitching and defense guy. I think hitting's going to come and go. So just trying to get the right guys in the lineup, give us the best chance to catch it and throw it, and then guys on the mound that's going to pound the zone. So we've had to, substitute some guys in hitting situations that maybe were better at the plate, but not as good on defense. So it's just mixing and matching, and we've kind of done that on a daily basis. Like I said, we've only had 3 or 4 guys that have probably been staples in our lineup. So still trying to figure that out a little bit and just be more consistent.
When you talk about pitching is something that you really like, guys that pound the zone, and we talked about it off air before we started this about doesn't have to be velo, although you like those guys that can run it up there in the 90s if they can, obviously, but you got guys that just know how to pitch. And we referenced Greg Maddox, just the way that he made a Hall of Fame career out of being able to just nibble on the corners, be able to locate the ball where he needs to do that. And you've got a pitcher right now that's doing that for you.
Yeah, and that, we talked about that. Perfect example is Landon Thiel. I mean, he's a guy that's not a high velo guy, but he can pound the zone with his fastball, and then he can flip in his changeup and his breaking ball for strikes. And, against good hitting clubs, if you can do that and pitch backwards at times, you got a chance in every game. And as a coach, there's nothing better than having a guy that pounds the zone, because you don't want to sit out there, give up 2 or 3 walks, and then they flip a hit, score a couple of runs. So we've been overall pretty good with that. Jordan Myers, he's a higher velo guy, got good stuff, got good secondary pitches, does a good job at pounding the zone. Just want to get him a little bit more run support. It seems like we struggle when he's on the mound for run support. So hopefully that changes today and we can do that.
Let's talk about that pitching backwards. You mentioned that. What does that look like for our listeners that may not be aware of what pitching backwards means? Talk about that from a coach's perspective.
Yeah, you got a guy that will pitch, that he can throw his breaking ball in, maybe fastball counts. Instead of leading off a hitter with a fastball, you might flip in that breaking ball. And if you can do that and throw it consistently, hitters have a hard time, getting their timing and rhythm. It puts a little bit more thought into their head. What's this guy going to throw? So guys that can do that will have a lot of success at this level.
On offense, we've been able to broadcast one game with Aerovision, obviously overlapping with other sports and everything, but Grady Oliver, Lane Condry, Cooper Bates, Myers, we're talking about some deep threats that you have in this lineup. What characteristic do you see out of all of them and how they've been able to play so well this year? Well,
those guys you mentioned, those have been staples in our lineup all year. And Grady Oliver, I can't say enough about that guy coming in. He had some health issues with his arm, and he's done an outstanding job all year long on both sides, defensively, offensively. He knows how to handle the bat. He's a guy that I feel good about. If we get the leadoff hitter on, we can hit and run with him. He loves to do it, and so that's a plus too for a coach. Guys sometimes are hesitant to want to bunt or hit and run or something like that, but he's done an outstanding job. Jordan has been, our 3-hole hitter the whole year long, handled the bat well, got a ton of RBIs. A lot of that has to do with Grady getting on base in front of him. So he's another guy that handles the bat well. Got a little pop for not such a big guy. And then Lane last night, we moved him down in the order, and he ended up getting 3 hits for us. So it brought our back end of our lineup up, and he drove in some runs. And then Cooper Bates, two-sport guy, kind of a tough kid, strong kid. We moved him a little bit last night as well, moved him out of the leadoff and put him in the 4-hole. So he's a guy that can handle different situations that you put him in, and he's been a kind of a leader of our team.
Well, Coach, and you talk about Cooper and just what he brings. Had to move him to the outfield, played some infield for you last year, but he's just kind of that Swiss Army knife, a guy you can put probably anywhere that you need to. And I love his mindset. He'll do whatever's best for the team. So if that means you got to play him in right field, he's going to play right field. If you got to play him at first, he'll play first. I don't know if he can catch or not, but he also gets on the mound for you. I mean, he can eat some innings for you if he needs to. So Cooper Bates has been somebody that has been steady, but it's got to be I know as a coach, you got to have that center fielder that can lock it down and can go get it in the gap.
You know, they always say in baseball you need to be strong up the middle. So you want to put your better guys in that situation. And for him and for us, how he fits with our team is, you know, him manning the center field position has been good. He had a outstanding catch in the first inning last night. Had to go deep into center. Made a good read on the ball. Took a good angle and did a great job of pulling that against a really good hitter. I think a kid that's probably going to be a draft type hitter. Took probably a triple away. So he's just, you know, just a guy that you can depend on. You know what you're going to get out of him, and he's going to be there day to day. So he's been a leader in that regard.
And he's not an emotional kid. I mean, he's not riding this wave. You may have one or two of those that can do that rides the wave, but he is pretty old steady Eddie out there.
Yeah, he's that type of kid, you know. You're not going to hear him barking or anything loud or anything like that. He's just going to kind of show by example and what he does and how he hustles and just shows up every day.
Let's talk a little bit about as the season progresses. You've got some more district games obviously coming up, but you know, you got the postseason looming and what that really looks like. So let's talk about the remainder of the regular season schedule, what that looks like for you.
Obviously, you know, the district games are the most important. We got another one today. We need to try to sweep Enid if we can. We split with some teams. Probably gave one away that we shouldn't have, but still in the running for regional. If we can finish out strong right here, if we can win today and maybe sweep Piedmont next week, and then we got one more district set after that. So we still got a chance to host. Obviously, you want to be at home if possible, but you know, if we have to go on the road, we've done that before, so we'll be ready no matter what the situation.
Well, you're talking about ready no matter what the situation. Your parents, I saw them. I got to meet them, and they are constants right there by the third base line. They're standing behind or sitting behind the netting. How important is it for you to have your parents be able to watch your games?
Oh, it's always good, you know, to have the parents there. We had a good following last night to Enid, so just having them there, you know, bringing something positive to the environment is always a plus. So always like to see a crowd. You know, weather sometimes dictates that a little bit on what we get at the field. This time of year, you got to bring everything you got to the field as far as coats and all that good stuff. So hopefully we can get some weather here to finish up and we can get some good crowds out.
This district 6A4, I mean, Bixby's obviously on top right now, but like there's no easy games in here, it seems like. Just break it down how this district is different than years past.
I think we ended up in the toughest district. You know, obviously you got Bixby up there, but, you know, you got Piedmont. Everybody's capable of beating everybody. And I think this year compared to last year, everybody, in some ways, talent-wise, kind of came back a little bit, so it's a little more wide open. There's not really anybody that's dominant, so it's just going to come down to matchups day to day, and you know, basically who's on the mound, that type of stuff. So everybody's got a chance in this district to host, and I think everybody will have a chance at the back end of the season.
For your seniors, I'm assuming you don't have to tell them much in the regards of we're more than halfway through the season. It's go time now.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast the season goes. We always talk about it. Once we get to spring break and get back from there, it's almost half over. So you're kind of, there needs to be a sense of urgency because you're at that point in the season. So we're looking at about, you know, 3.5 more full weeks of season, and then it's regional time. So you gotta get it on. It's time.
Well, you played extremely well last night. A 9-0 win at Enid, which not an easy place to play.
Long drive.
What a neat ballpark they have there. But for you to be able to go up against one of the better arms probably in the district and get, as you said last night, timely hits when you need it, and you get guys like Condrey in the 7-hole, able to drive in some runs, really helps you offensively. And you hope that carries over tonight for Jordan on the mound, because he's had some struggles with run support. He's pitched well, but he's had some struggles with the offense getting going. So hopefully tonight's a different story for him.
Yeah, and like I said last night, we did every phase of the game. Defense was sound. We put a couple of bunts down. We hit with runners in scoring position. Our pitching was outstanding, and so it was a good outing. It is tough to go there because you got to travel. Almost 2.5 hours to get there. So it's always tough situation to play in their park. And, they got their number one guy on the bump. So hopefully we can carry over tonight with some of that momentum and keep it rolling.
Yeah.
Well, Coach Dobson, we greatly appreciate you jumping on the podcast. Hopefully you can give my Detroit Tigers some love. And Coach,
he's a Reds fan. So
yeah. So all three of us are. Yeah. It's been a whirlwind because you're a Cubs fan, but we appreciate you jumping on the Uncaged podcast, and best of luck the rest of the way. That does it for this edition of the Uncaged podcast. Thank you for joining with us. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms. And until next time, go Tigers.